We're going to go ahead and get started.
Yep, there is a delay with our YouTube stream, but we are streaming and we are recording.
So we're ready to go.
We're ready to go.
Welcome, everybody. This is some of our first in-person meeting. So it's good to see everybody in person. And it's good practice for us because we're going to go in person starting in April. So unless something happens. But at this point, our plan is to go back live in person at our first meeting in April. So we're going to go ahead and call the Moab City Council Strategic Planning Meeting to session for 2022 and 2023 with our annual department head presentations. And Ben, do you want me to turn it over to you, or do you want me to go ahead and call on Levi?
Yeah, that'd be great. I have a few points to make, if that's okay.
Okay, let's go.
First, I just wanted to introduce Jim Carter and Olivia Svetko.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. With Logan Simpson. So they'll just be observing today. They're with Logan Simpson, and they'll be facilitating the conversation tomorrow. We've asked department heads to begin each presentation with the department overview, current year accomplishments, and next year, so next fiscal year objectives, and how they want to accomplish that. They won't be at tomorrow's meeting, so I would challenge any. I would welcome.
Always a challenge.
I would welcome any questions to the department head that you may have after their presentation. I think after they wrap up, then there will just be an opportunity to ask department-specific questions. I've also asked, I kind of threw a last-minute wrench into department heads. I apologize for that. I asked them not to read their bullet points. Instead, what I'd like them to do is basically, because we can all read the bullet points as they're displayed and later as well. Instead, kind of provide some of the narratives, the story behind it instead. So, challenge accepted, I hope. With that, I would welcome Levi to go ahead and come up to the hot seat. Just press the white button, and slides will be advanced with a space bar. So,
Mayor, Council, Ben, thank you for all the surprises. Carly. Levi Jones, Public Works Director. I manage 5 departments. Facilities, streets, water, admin,
Fleet.
and fleet. Thank you. Facilities consists of 8 employees. We have Chase as the lead, Sabine, Bonnie, Larry, Jordan, Ramona, and we recently added Hvac maintenance. So that includes Patrick and Colby, who's our part-time employee. This team cleans and maintains all the city facilities. City Hall, Public Works, Mark, Hvac, WRF, and the Scout House. Just to give you an example, there's 25 restrooms that 6 of those employees maintain Monday through Friday. It's very, very challenging. Along with that, facilities also isn't responsible for Walnut Lane maintenance. This last fiscal year, they've accomplished rebuilding 2 trailers, replaced numerous furnaces, AC units, plumbing, electrical. Any issue that is reported, we try to take care of. If we're not able to, then we call on a contractor or a plumber or an electrician. There's some work to do at the gym. The boiler's failing. We need to upgrade the HVAC system at the gym. Every year we're replacing plumbing on that boiler system, and it's failing. Along with facility maintenance, they also assist other departments, snow plow, storm cleanup, that kind of stuff. We would like to, we're looking at zero-scaping, potentially in front of Sun Court, around City Hall, Public Works, working with Mila on some tree replacement. And that, Hvac. So Patrick's been with us for a number of years, and he's leaving sometime this summer. We have Colby, who is a part-time employee working full-time hours, trying to get up to speed. So when Patrick leaves, it's a smooth transition, so there's some work to do there. Any questions on facilities? Fleet. We had a recent turnover in fleet. Thank you, Ben. Chet, who was our lead streets, is now our lead fleet. That's just one personnel. That guy's responsible for 130 pieces of equipment. That's including fleet, PD, loaders, skid steers, multiple UTVs, ATVs, and small engine. We're working with Mila on trying to introduce some electric fleet. That's slightly disappointing that they're not available. We'd like to purchase some new service trucks, and those aren't available either. Talking about 6 months out, just for a gasoline service truck. So we have some work to do there. We would like to rotate out the fleet. We have numerous trucks that are older than 10 years old, and that's not okay. That becomes high maintenance issues.
Sorry, Levi, it says you're done.
Says to cross you off the list.
Any questions on fleet?
So given the challenges procuring electric vehicles, are you going to pursue shorter-term leases so that you can have flexibility as they become available, or?
We're not sure exactly what our options are yet, and some of it depends on the final budget too. I mean, we don't know what that looks like yet. So if we could do lease, that's great. If we can purchase them outright, that's great too. The biggest, either way, there's a shortage, and it's going to take a while to get anything, regardless of what it is.
Right.
But we don't know what the best options are at the moment.
Right. What I meant was like lease a liquid fuel vehicle in the short term, and so that there's flexibility as in future years. So, but I understand you're looking at it. And that's great.
We'd like to introduce it. We don't have, I think the golf cart. I think that's the only piece of electric fleet we have, and we would like more. Tony?
Is one mechanic enough?
Say that again?
Is one mechanic enough?
It is not.
It's
That is one of my budget requests this year, is to get him some help. I'd like to add another body in the shop.
Yeah, that's a lot of equipment for one person to maintain,
It is.
and you can't prioritize.
Yeah, and it comes in waves.
Yeah.
Well, with that being said, he has help. Chet has help. So if there is, so that a snowplow is down, one of the streets guys will go in there and help him, give him a hand. There's a lot of things that can be done. They need to be done safely, and it requires two people to be there. So that's how we make it up. Is with the equipment the department is assigned to, we try to cut the water. If the backhoe or the mini X is in there, the water department guy will help out there. But yeah, but then that takes away from the other duties that they're doing as well. So streets consist of 5 employees. Lane is the lead, Aaron, Alex, Jason, William. This department has the newest employees. Last year they worked shorthanded for most of the year. Out of all those 5 employees, only one of them has a CDL, so we're scrambling to get personnel trained. So that's everything they do requires driving a dump truck. Those dump trucks, the sweeper, they all require a CDL. So we're training those personnel to get them caught up now. It's going to take a minute. With them being shorthanded, they're behind. They recently caught up on some patching. They have a lot of painting. Last year, for instance, they had approximately 500 hours in storm cleanup. Same in tree trimming. Over 300 hours in weed control and sweeping. They had 500 hours in sweeping. And so that's why operating with low or small shortage in personnel has put them behind on some of the maintenance stuff. So that's what they're working on now, is getting people trained, certified on the certifications they need, and then trying to come up with a plan to prioritize some of these backed up projects. Any questions on streets?
I guess I'm just curious, with climate change and kind of bigger storm events happening, are we kind of thinking in the future that we'll probably be looking at spending more time on storm cleanup? Yeah.
Yeah. We don't get those drizzles anymore. It seems to hit us all at once, and that kind of wreaks havoc on the town. It's those situations. There's not just the streets department. There's other facilities, water department. They're coming together, and the fleet. They'll be Chad will be out there operating equipment as well. So it's not just one department. It's a team effort. Anything else?
Levi, if you don't mind, I'm curious what a normal year would look like with storm cleanup, like without these major storm events that we saw last year.
So this year was unique. We had 3 storms that were back to back, and we weren't finished cleaning up one and another one hit. And that's not typical. Usually you have a little break in between, or they're not as severe. And that requires a lot of clean. We had 2 crews running 3 weeks straight just picking up tree limbs.
You don't have a number
For
of hours?
hours,
Like,
we had
like-
roughly, this last year, we logged roughly 500 hours from storm cleanup. And that was just the streets. That wasn't other facilities helping out, water to helping out. Prior years, safe to say half that?
Okay, thanks.
That answer your question? Roundabout. Water department. It consists of 4 employees. Conrad's the lead, Ken, Ryan, and Jace. Jace is our newest employee. He has been here 6 months. All employees have all the necessary certifications with the exception of Jace. It's going to take him a couple years to get where the certification he needs to operate the system. The water department's responsible for 55 miles of water line. Where are my notes? 800 valves, 310 hydrants, and 3 1 million gallon tanks. There's also 4 major springs and 3 wells, and they spend a lot of hours maintaining and treating the water. One of their biggest challenges is the failing infrastructure and the water leaks and the repairs we have to make. We're still working on getting a Hvac trailer for that department. There's a supply issue. We're trying to get one down here so we can demo, and it's impossible. I'm hopeful we can buy one this year, but we're still working with vendors to purchase the right piece of equipment. Mill Creek water line. Crews are out there monitoring that. Harrison's working with them, make sure that the infrastructure is installed properly, testing the water lines, sampling the water lines. We had an issue a couple weeks ago where a section of the water line failed, and that's a direct indicator of the age of the infrastructure. You expose it and it breaks. That's what's happening. So we're on track with replacing that water line. Certifications, that department. Last year they spent roughly 120 hours attending training to maintain the certifications. And that's just the 3 employees. That's going to increase with the 4th getting where they need to be. Any questions on the water department? Public Works admin. Consists of Jamie and I. Our number 1 priority is responding to the public, their phone calls, emails, walk-ins. Our second priority is supporting staff, providing them the tools and they need to do their duties. Working with the engineering department, drafting large projects, collaborating large projects. We have the Public Works building needs some improvements, so we would like to make some small improvements, hopefully get some longevity out of that building. That is Public Works.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
Any other questions for Levi?
It's only about half of what I wanted to give you today. Thank you, Ben, I appreciate
I
it.
guess I have a quick question, Levi. I mean, for years, we talked about what bad shape the Public Works building is in, and, obviously, ideally, we'd like to replace it, but I know you're talking about improvements, but how much of a Band-Aid is that putting on, an ugly situation? Like, I mean, do you feel like it's safe? It's hard as a council member to prioritize. It just seems like we've needed a new building for Public Works for a long time, so maybe just an update on, yeah.
So the shiny new car would be nice.
Yeah.
Is it our priority? I don't think so. The facility isn't big enough. We could use another lift. We could use more office space. As far as unsafe, we work with the trust. We have a safety coordinator there we work with closely. We inspect it regularly, and as we find stuff, we correct the issues. So safety issue, it's more of, is it suitable for our needs? And we've outgrown that building. It is old. The HVAC's been upgraded in portions of it. We got rid of the wood burning stove, and now we have an oil burner in the shop. We've done some improvements over the years. We would like to do some more, and opening up some office and closing some office space. Minimal. Is it a priority to replace it in the next 3 to 5 years? Maybe. I think with some improvements, we can get some more time out of it. We have other priorities. MRAC, the gym, expanding City Hall. There's rec, the ball field. They could use a new facility over there. The infrastructure is bigger priority than the Public Works building.
You get snakes and lizards and scorpions that come in your building?
They don't have those in our part of town.
Yeah,
They come to mine.
Facilities Department does a great job with pest control, so it's minimal. Yeah.
At the county road department, whenever it rains, they wash down off the cliffs and they come visit me.
I know that like Levi and I have been talking about for his next year and maybe the years after, we need to do some large scale like asset management planning and facilities planning. So we don't have plans for each of our facilities, and it would be great if we did, especially to incorporate like sustainability goals and just replacement goals. Right now we kind of lump them with our capital improvements generally, and as a result, like a new Public Works building will never be as urgent as a broken water line, and so it keeps getting pushed down. So maybe if we can like detach it, and if we have more realistic understanding of when we would replace Public Works, then we can decide and make good decisions about what repairs to make and when, and when we stop investing in it and prepare for a different kind of facility or whatever. So that's work that should be done in the next few years, in my mind.
Good.
So,
Go ahead, Jason.
I was just gonna ask, if you were to go through, like, each department that you manage and put a number on personnel that you're short, what would it be, to not alleviate 100%, but alleviate a lot of the workload that these other guys are putting in?
My number one priority would be fleet, to get him a second person. Not only for workload, but for safety. It's using a ladder, you have to have 2 people. And so safety is a big issue. Not saying he's unsafe, but it help maintaining the fleet. It can get overwhelming in that shop sometimes. The second priority would be water. They could use another person as well. Yeah.
Caleb?
So I appreciate that you are improving security on the ground. And so this is a little bit of maybe a cross-department question. Do you feel like the SCADA system is getting adequate resources for security?
Is getting adequate?
Yes.
Yes. So we work with Dorset. They are our SCADA supplier. Everything goes through the server, so IT has all the security measures there. Nothing at any time is jeopardized as far as I'm concerned. That might be an IT question.
Okay.
But everything, our server goes down here, the power goes out, I'm calling Summer. We're contacting Pro Velocity. Can't see it. It's maybe over-secure. We have some limitations, but I think it's necessary. I don't feel that it's under-secured at all.
Okay. And then with the center seat gym HVAC, are you looking at electrifying it by, like with a heat pump? And
For the gym?
yes.
Right now, we have swamp cooler and a boiler heating system, and neither one are sufficient. The boiler system's failing and swamp coolers, nobody likes a swamp cooler. We want to upgrade it. We did that upgrade at the MREC. Efficient HVAC. We want to do something similar to, smaller, it's a smaller building, bigger spaces, smaller rooms, less rooms, something similar. So I don't know what that price looks like. Did that answer your question?
So we have these larger climate goals, which would be facilitated by transitioning from a gas-powered boiler to a heat pump, which is all electric.
Yeah, there would have to be some electrical upgrades. Don't know what any of that looks like. We have an outdated draft that's pre-COVID, so we don't know what that looks like yet.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Levi? This is hard, having to turn my head all the time. On Zoom, I could just look and see when people's mute button went off. Thanks, Levi.
Awesome.
Appreciate that, and Summer.
Can I make a quick request?
Sure.
I know it's hard, but we need to speak into the microphones.
Oh, right.
It seems a little overwhelming in here, and I'll adjust that level, but it is quiet on YouTube, so if you could
Okay.
please speak into your microphone, that would be great.
Thanks, Summer. Thanks, Levi,
Mary.
for
Thanks,
everything
everyone.
you do.
Thank you.
Everybody pay attention to the newspaper. The first newspaper in April will be featuring Levi in the Public Works Department. There'll be an article about him. Yeah. I think it's important for his department to be recognized for all the work that they do. Hi, Brett.
Good morning. Is it the forward arrow?
Space bar.
Space bar, okay.
Either one.
Levi's taller than I am, so let me get this down here. Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to give you a little bit of a summary and history of the police department for the last year. I'll start with the summary. I think we all probably know what the police department does, but basically we provide all the law enforcement and code enforcement services for all of the citizens and visitors to the Moab area, or to the city of Moab. We are allocated for 16 full-time police officers. We currently have, well, when I created this, we had 9. I think we're down to 8 now. What that means in real time is a few things. When you only have 9 officers, and you should have more than 16, but allocated at 16. Reduced efficiency to calls, poor reports, poor investigations. County, the sheriff's office fills in when we can't get to a call. Officer safety is significantly decreased. More often than not, there's only 1 officer on duty at any given time. So their backup is coming from county or from highway, state parks, whoever may be available. So unfortunately, when you're that understaffed, there are some significant compromises. We also have 1 part-time police officer who, he is part-time, but when he has a side business, and when his side business, in the season that his side business is slow, he's effectively full-time for us, and he's a very experienced officer. All of the folks we have working for us are people I'm incredibly proud of. I think they do an amazing job with what they have. We also have 2 full-time code enforcement officers, which encompasses animal control as well, and then 1 shelter manager. I am requesting for next year, and we'll get to this in another slide, but another code enforcement officer, because one of the code enforcement officers that we have is a supervisor who supervises code enforcement and the shelter. So in addition to being call responsive, he has to also manage individuals. We have 2 full-time administrative assistants and a full-time victim advocate. We just, Karen, our former VAU victim advocate manager, she left to go work for the county, and we were extremely fortunate to pick up Nathaniel Clark, who started in a temporary part-time position, and very quickly, within a week or two, said, if I can do this full-time, I would love to. And he's doing a phenomenal job, so it was a no-brainer for us to bring him on board. We have Mona, a full-time code compliance specialist, and then George as a part-time crossing guard. The divisions that we operate with are patrol, investigations, code enforcement, and then administration, which would be your administrative assistants, your chief, and your assistant chief. Any questions on summary? I think it goes without saying that last year was challenging at the very least. Even given the difficulties and the challenges that we faced, I feel like we did have some accomplishments and some things to be proud of. One of those, we were asked to draft new job descriptions for every position within the department, which meant revising the existing job descriptions and actually creating from scratch some new ones. We never had a job description specifically for detectives. We never had one for a detective sergeant. And I think there were 1 or 2 others. So it was a fairly significant project to complete, but we did it, and we're super proud of that. During the time that I've been with the department for 16 years, I don't think we've ever purchased a vehicle on grant, but we managed to secure a grant from the USDA last year that allowed us to purchase, with city match, 2 vehicles. Those vehicles are both unmarked SUVs that went to a detective, and then the other one was for the assistant chief, replacing vehicles that were 10 plus years old. So now they have some nice vehicles, and they even have a remote start, which is pretty cool. We did an evidence room inventory last year and discovered that, not surprisingly, but we have 100% accuracy in the evidence room, which is always a good thing. Everything that should be there is there. Everything that shouldn't be there isn't there. So we're pretty proud about that. We also developed and implemented a reserve officer program from scratch. The department has never had one, so we developed the policy and worked with human resources and city management to develop this program. And we were originally slated to be able to have 5 part-time officers. We've only been able to we had 2 at one point. One of them ended up going full-time. The other one remains in a part-time status, but that has been very helpful. We generated 3,314 reports last year, and that is not calls for service. The way we do a reporting depends on the type of call. So we generated 3,314 reports, but the calls for service would actually have been higher for that. And the reason is, if you go to, as an officer, if you go to just a simple call, say a barking dog, just first thing off the top of my head, you don't do a full report on that. It's what's called a log entry. So you just do a quick log entry in the records management system that says, I responded to this address on a barking dog, contacted the owner, problem resolved. So the reports that were generated would be traffic accidents, they would be assaults, sexual assaults, DUIs, anything of a more serious nature. So that's quite a few reports for the number of officers that we have to be able to manage in a given year. We also did 1,598 traffic stops. That doesn't mean that we issued that many citations. The vast majority of traffic stops are verbal warnings, just usually more of an educational experience for the motoring public than it is a enforcement type thing. So if you consider that we had almost 1,600 traffic stops in addition to the 3,300 plus reports generated, you can do the math and guess that we were pretty busy. We also took 275 traffic accidents. We do, a lot of agencies do not respond for private property crashes. So 2 cars backing out of a parking space in City Market who bump into each other, we actually provide a report. A lot of agencies don't, or they do it online, whereas we actually will dispatch an officer to take the report, get statements from both sides, and then provide them with a case number. I think that's important because if you've ever been into a fender bender, insurance does not like to cooperate unless there's a police report. So although traffic accidents do take a significant amount of our time, I think it's important that we are able to do that and that we continue to do it. Questions on that? Yes, Kayla.
So were the reserve officers accounted in the previous slide in the accounting of staff numbers, or are they additional to that?
It was 9 full-time and 1 part-time.
Okay.
So it was accounted for.
Okay. And do the police ever fill in for calls in the county if there's
We do.
Okay, so it goes
Yeah.
both ways.
Both agencies are understaffed. Call volume increases every year. We had I think it was 2 weeks ago, we had some of our officers and deputies responding out into the county where they had a suicidal female with a gun in a house. And on the way there, they got a semi-crash on 191. So the deputies had to pull off and go to that call while our officers, 2 officers, went to the suicidal female with a gun and ended up making entry and found her passed out in her bedroom. So things, went well. But that's a prime example of 2 hot calls that both needed more people than were on it, and they didn't have it.
Yep.
But we do frequently do that. And the entire time I've been here, one thing I can say that has been exceptional is all of the local law enforcement agencies and public safety, EMS, fire, everybody helps each other out. I've been on calls with state park rangers, with national park rangers, with BLM, county, highway. I mean, it's when something, we call them hot calls. When a hot call comes out, whoever's in the area rolls. Doesn't matter what badge you wear, doesn't matter what's on your shoulder, everybody rolls and everybody helps each other out. It has always been that way, and I suspect it'll always be that way here. I have friends who work in larger agencies and big cities, and it's not always that way there. There's a lot of, kind of infighting and no, it's yours, no, it's mine, this kind of thing, and we don't do that here. So we're very lucky to have that kind of cooperation.
So I just have a question. I know, I sit on the EMS board, and one of the things we look at is, statistics of growing number of calls. Do we have any sense over time, just, I don't know, for total, and this is hard because I don't know if staffing can get to every call, frankly, but do we have any sense, if the overall number of calls or a certain type of call is increasing or decreasing? And then I have a follow-up question about that, yeah.
The dispatch, so all calls go through dispatch.
Yeah.
Dispatch's reporting software is not very sophisticated. So frankly, there's no way to know. We've had them run reports, and depending on how they run the report, it comes back with different numbers. So I can't tell you reliably that we have any solid information. Anecdotally, it's increasing every year.
Yeah.
But
Okay, that makes sense, given the EMS stuff going on. And then you may be getting to this, sorry, I don't mean to, so just when you get to the asks, I was just wondering if you could touch on, if it's not already on your list, just to give us some advice on the transition from Fat Pot to Spillman, just if that, okay.
Absolutely. Next slide. Good segue, thank you. So for the next fiscal year, one of the things that we're asking for is an additional code enforcement officer so that we will have your supervisor, 2 code enforcement, and the shelter manager. As it stands right now, the shelter manager regularly fills in for code enforcement, which is not optimal. Mona is awesome. She's very proactive, as she should be, and over the last couple of years, it seems like the number of code compliance issues that we're dealing with has increased, and frequently with those, she needs a code enforcement officer or a police officer to respond with her. We have certain members of the community who don't like any type of authority, and it's not safe for someone who doesn't have at least some training and a vest and, some weapon to go out with them to make contact with some of these folks. So we almost always have either a code enforcement or a police officer go with her. So I think if we could get an additional code enforcement officer on staff, it would make Mona even more productive than she is now. And it would also increase safety across the board, while also giving our code enforcement folks the ability to respond quicker and better to animal calls. To do that, it's a little over $123,000. That includes wages, benefits, all their equipment, and a new vehicle for them. One of the internal affairs reports last year recommended that we create a position for a domestic violence specialist. I think it's a fantastic idea. I did quite a bit of research on that topic and found that it's not something that's commonly done in Utah, but a lot of larger agencies across the U.S. have, instead of calling it a DV specialist, it's a DV detective or DV investigator position. And that's primarily what they do is they review every domestic violence report that comes through. They follow up on those investigations. They do training and education for the public and for officers. The only agency that I was able to find in Utah who has a similar position was Clearfield Police Department. They've had it now for about 2 years, and they raved about the results. So I'm fully supportive of creating that position. To do so is almost $126,000. That'll include your wage, benefits, and equipment. I'm not including a vehicle in that because I've got vehicles listed separately a little bit down the line. When I created this, we had 3 vacant police officer positions. There are more now. For 3 positions, it's a little over $377,000. That's your wages, benefits, and equipment. We do have, and I should have mentioned this in staffing, Natasha Bowen graduated post last week and started her field training on Wednesday of this week. She's been with us for about 3 years. Previously she was an admin assistant, and then she did animal control. And Natasha is a rock star. We all love her. The public loves her, so she's going to do really, really well as a law enforcement officer. We have a gentleman named Nathan Toohey who is in the academy right now. I think he's in his 3rd week out of 16 weeks. And we have extended offers to 2 recruits, one from Richfield and one from the Salt Lake area, one female, one male. Both of them are in the hiring process right now. They're going through backgrounds and psych evaluations, all the fun stuff that we have to do with them. So if they get through everything, they're slated to start the academy on May 23rd. It's a 16-week academy and a 12-week field training. So when they graduate, or from the time they start, they'll have 28 weeks before they're a real officer. We would like to, we have 4 patrol vehicles that we need to replace. We have leases expiring on patrol vehicles, and we have older vehicles that are just barely hanging on. So we're requesting 4 new vehicles for them as well, and one of those includes a vehicle for the DV investigator. Approximately $208,000 to purchase them, or a little over, or closer to $39,000 to lease them. Let's see. We have a decades-old handshake agreement with the county for dispatch services. Dispatch services are not great, to say the least. The equipment they're using is so outdated that when it goes down, they really have to search for replacement parts. It's not even currently supported by the company who made them. The handshake agreement that we have had with them is that we will pay for 1 year salary and wages, or salary and benefits for 1 dispatcher. This year that went up 25% without notice. So we went from $125,000 to $48,000, I think it is. And what they're charging us for is the dispatch supervisor, who also last year assumed the role of emergency manager. So the handshake agreement, as I understand it, was to pay for the highest paid dispatcher, which is one position, not the dispatch supervisor / emergency manager, which is two positions, who they are paying considerably more than they are a dispatcher. I think that it is absolutely critical that we get away from handshake agreements and we create a written contract with the SO for dispatch services, or we look elsewhere for dispatch. We're not getting what we pay for, frankly. There are significantly better options, but they also are not cheap, nor are they easy to make the transition, but we really need to look at doing something there. And I will also point out for the dispatch services, we are the only public safety agency in the valley who pays for dispatch services, other than the National Park Service, who pays $5,000 a year. Fire doesn't, EMS, to my knowledge, doesn't, BLM doesn't. So it's just us, and we're paying $150,000 a year.
So Brett, so are you saying that the other agencies, that they don't pay, they use our county dispatch service as well?
Yes. Yeah, National Parks pays $5,000. Unless something has happened recently, and maybe Ronnie can speak to this, EMS does not pay for dispatch services, Fire doesn't, and BLM, BLM doesn't use them significantly, but they do use their services.
Do you remember offhand, Jason?
No, the
If
only thing I
Jason's on
can
the
think
EMS
of is
board
that
too.
they're a county agency, so they're probably locked in with the whole county budget.
Yeah,
You
we can check on that, though, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if there's a line item for them. I don't think there is, but
Right.
I'd assume it's lumped in general
Okay.
agency.
Several local agencies use our firearms range, and I guess that's actually an accomplishment for last year. We have a lease for the firearms range with Sitla, who owns the property, and the lease expired December 31st of last year. We negotiated a renewal with them for, I think it's another 20 years, if I recall correctly. So we do have that range still available to us, which is a absolutely phenomenal service, because the next closest range is in Green River. So it takes a full day to get a group of officers up to Green River for training. We pay for the range. There's, again, a handshake agreement with the sheriff's office to blade the road that goes out to the range in exchange for use of it. I don't think that's financially viable. I believe that every agency who uses it should be paying for it. So one of the priorities that I had for last year and didn't get around to, but would have liked to have done this year, was to create a fee schedule for use of our range so that we can recoup some of those costs. We don't pay a lot for the lease. It's $3,000 or so, but it could potentially be a way to, if not offset all of what we pay for the range by charging other agencies to use it. And the last thing I have is to replace Hvac with the Spillman records management system. The last time we looked at that, it was right around $250,000 to do so. But Hvac is old software that has changed hands changed management 3 or 4 times. The company who currently owns it is called Central Square. They no longer support it. It's a legacy product that they have said, we're not going to get rid of it, but we're not going to support it. So it's there, but there will be no further improvements to it. The reporting capabilities of Hvac are minimal. So just as an example, to create a use of force report requires 3 to 4 weeks. The annual use of force report requires about 3 to 4 weeks of one person sitting down and manually going through every single report from last year and then documenting the statistics. You cannot automate that report, whereas you can in other Spillman or other RMSs. So I do think that the sooner we can replace Hvac, the better off we're going to be, recognizing that it is a pretty heavy lift. And I think
When you say heavy lift, do you mean in terms of financial or actual just upgrading it to, the changeover, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Is the change going to be difficult, or is it just the price?
A little bit of both.
Okay,
Changing it from Hvac to Spillman, and anytime you go from one records management system to another, you go through this. You have to import all of your records from the previous one into the new one, and then there's a period of time where they have to do testing and evaluation to make sure that everything transferred correctly. Then you have to also go through, training all of the officers in how to use it.
okay.
Cops, a lot of us aren't the most tech-savvy people in the world, so it can take a minute or two to fully understand it to the point that you can utilize it efficiently. And then, of course, there is the cost. So it's a little bit of both, but primarily I would say it's the cost.
Okay.
Other questions?
Do you have more stuff on this or objectives?
I'm pretty sure that's it.
I had a question. Like a month ago or a month and a half ago, we had a presentation from the police department about tasers and cameras, and that they wanted to go to that system. Is that no longer something you guys are interested in, or is...
The system that they were proposing it's called the Axon Officer Safety Plan 7+, and it included a lot of things that we don't need right now. We already have the cameras, we already have the docks, and we already have tasers. So what this would have done is upgraded the tasers from the X2 to the Taser 7, which is the current model. Taser still supports the one that we have, so I really don't feel like there's a huge reason to upgrade the Taser. The cameras that we have are the current model camera, and the OSP 7+ plan included their version of a records management system, which no one in Utah is using currently. I think give it time and it'll be a really exceptional product, but it's brand new and hasn't been heavily adopted. So it includes that. It included several other things that I just don't really feel like the expense is worth what we would have gotten when we're already using current model camera, docks, and a taser that's still being supported. So I just feel like that money is better spent elsewhere.
Okay. And then my other question is, you said that you wanted to have someone who could kind of support Mona, and go into things. So would that additional code enforcement officer be post-certified?
In an ideal world, yes. At least SFO. There are two levels of post-certification. There's SFO, which is Special Functions Officer, and LEO, which is law enforcement. LEO is a 16-week academy. SFO is a 6-week academy. During the SFO portion, they learn defensive tactics, they learn state law, and a few other things that would be important to that position. So long-term, I would like to see all of the code enforcement officers go through SFO training. One of the current code enforcement officers is slated to start SFO in, I want to say, early November, and get through that by the end of the year, so he would be SFO certified. But to answer your question, yes, it would be ideal to have both of them, all three of them, the supervisor and both code enforcement officers SFO certified.
Caleb?
Is the Spillman, is that a purchase price or a subscription price, and does it include a startup cost?
That is your initial, and then your annual fee on that would be, from what we were able to understand, it's about what we're paying annually for Hvac.
Okay.
So this is your initial startup cost, which includes your first year of service, and then annually $13,000 to $15,000 a year.
Okay. And for the firearms range, the new agreement with SITLA, as I recall, required some sort of like long-term lead abatement plan.
Yes.
Is that included? Is it too minor to mention, or is it rolled into sort of the firearms range fee, or?
It is not rolled into the firearms range fee. It will cost about $100,000 to do the lead mitigation that is required out there. The contract required, or the lease required us to do start lead mitigation. I think back in 2009, they told us we needed to. Previous administrations hadn't done anything about it. When I took over, I immediately jumped on it. We got quotes on getting the work done. There was an old mobile home out there that we used for room clearing and whatnot that they wanted towed out of there, several old vehicles, tires. We used some of the funds that we had to get the motorhome and the tires and the old vehicles pulled away so that at least we were showing that we were trying to cooperate. But the lead mitigation is a very expensive, very time-intensive process, so we were not able to accomplish that.
Okay. And in terms of code enforcement, have there been any discussions about having a code violation abatement program? And if so, would that be covered under the current financial planning, or is that just sort of outside?
I'm not familiar with any discussions about that.
Okay.
Anybody else? Questions for Brett? Is that it? Are you
That's
done?
it? I think so. Yep,
Okay. Thanks, Brett. And
You
is
bet.
this your last day?
this is it.
All right, so that was one glaring missing piece in our objectives, is replacing the chief. So we'll be talking more about that on Tuesday with you all. So thanks,
Okay.
Brett.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Marcy.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to do the presentation for the finance department. A lot of you know the finance department consists of 4 employees. Ben Billingsley, who is also our deputy assistant manager right now as well, but myself, the city treasurer, and I have 2 deputies, Sabrina Nahara and Matt Miller. Matt Miller is very new. He's only been with the department for about a month. So we still have a lot of training, and we also have one going out on maternity leave. So although we have the goals of having a full department, we will be down for a few more months before we can be fully up and running with a full staff. With that said, the department summary that we have, or the things that we do in our department are the utility billing, collections. We handle all business licenses within the city. Accounts receivable is something we do for the entire city, as well as customer service, first point of contact. So we are the people that everybody is going to talk to when they first come in. So our number 1 priority in our department is customer service, and dealing with any type of concerns, questions, anything that comes in, whether somebody is happy, they're just there to pay their bill, or if somebody's coming in with questions or they're upset. Our number 1 goal is to listen, ensure that we're understanding, and then providing any feedback we can or going back to them. So customer service is number 1. The other thing that we handle is all of the monetary funds through the entire city. That includes the animal shelter, the pool, the rec department, and the MARC, as well as any city funds within City Hall. Some of the accomplishments, the number 1 that I'm most proud of is us getting into the low-income housing water assistance program. It was a ton of work for the state as well as the city to get all of the services, the documentation, everything they needed put into place. The program went into effect in December. We had 1 citizen so far that has utilized it. We have more that are working on taking advantage of the program. That 1 citizen, though, even though it's 1 citizen, it was huge to see that relief off of the citizen, as well as the accomplishments that our staff was able to, receive from that. We were able to keep somebody's water on. We were able to lift the burden of the finance portion of it within the city itself and for the citizen. And it was just exciting to see the smiling face from the citizen who was like, I can't believe this is happening. I'm so thankful. Thank you guys for all you did. So although it's only helped 1, we do hope to see it help more people in the future. It is a temporary program, as I think I explained when I had the contract approved by City Council, but the goal is for it to be long-term, like the heat assistant program is. It's all grant-based, and so we're just hoping to see that the need is there and see this program grow and become more of an asset to the city. We also use the Multicultural Center as well. They've been a huge asset for Walnut Lane. They've been a huge asset for citizens that, especially during the winter months, things slow down. A lot of people are laid off. They don't have the same amount of funds that they have during the summer months or our busy season. So the Multicultural Center, I have to give a big thanks to them because they have helped a lot of citizens and our Walnut Lane tenants. Another accomplishment is we do shutoffs. We used to do them every 90 days. We do them now within 10 days past due. Part of the reason we did that change was because of the low-income water assistance program. They will not, their priority is to help people who have been shut off versus helping those who are not quite shut off, but they still, so it was a decision that we made to help eliminate shutoffs or large bills, and also to help people that do need this assistance get the assistance. We went from an average of 5 per month in the last year. Previous years were about 20 shutoffs we would do. So we went down to 5 to 1 in the last 4 months of shutoffs, which is a huge accomplishment. A lot of that has to do with our outreach that we have done in the community. We do personal phone calls for anybody who is on our shutoff list, or that we feel that could use some of the assistance that we provide, like our payment plans, our payment agreements that we have in place, whether that's 1 month, 6 months. We work with anybody, and we want to be, a lot of people I don't think are aware of our services that we do have for utilities. So putting in that additional step, we're getting ready to do shutoffs where we're 3 days out, we print our list and we get on the phone and we start making phone calls. And usually we can get most people either paid because they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know my credit card expired, or they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I wasn't able to pay it, what can you do? And we're able to eliminate that. So that's been huge for us. The other thing that I think was super crucial is updating our utility code to be more consistent with what we do, as well as improving processes and flows. So that was a huge accomplishment, and a fun one because it was my first code I ever updated. With having a full staff, some of the things that we want to accomplish is cleaning up our archives. We have an archive room that is clear full of documentation back to like the 1960s, I think. There is a state code that tells us how long we have to retain records for, and it's very obvious they have not been purged out. And so one of our goals for this year is to work through documenting and purging and destroying documentation that we don't need to try to clean up some of the space we have in our archive files. The next thing that we want to try to accomplish with our staff is we have a new accounting management software program that handles all of our utility billing, accounts receivable. We want to spend some time putting in all of the paper documentation we get, like utility applications, business licenses, their actual certificates that businesses receive, so that we can quickly address people's questions when they call. Like, we have a lot of businesses call, hey, I need a copy of my business license. And we're like, oh, okay, well, we got to dig in our files. We'll try to get that to you as soon as possible. Sometimes people need them right then and there. They're having an audit. They've got DABC, Department of Alcohol and Beverage, down here, and they're stressing to get a copy of their business license because they misplaced it in a file. So our goal with this is to help eliminate that delay in response to our citizens and to our businesses, and be able to address questions in a more quick fashion than we currently are with paper-based running. The next thing that we are trying to accomplish that I think is long overdue is audits of our current city businesses. What that means is we have a lot of businesses that require certain certifications, registrations with the state of Utah, and sales tax, and many other different odds and ends. But we have yet to actually complete a full audit to determine or review to make sure that each of our city businesses are meeting those requirements as an ongoing basis. We have businesses that have been here for 30 years that we believe are still doing it, but some of these changes are in the last 5 to 10 years where registration with the state of Utah is required, whereas before it wasn't. So the goal with this is to make sure everybody's up to speed, give them an opportunity to correct it, and work with our businesses to try to have a more personal relationship, as well as be a support to try to accomplish some of the goals that the city and the state require for code reasons. Some of the additional things that we are hoping to do this year is we want to reach out to our utility, and we do with our businesses already, but with our utility people, what we have ran into, especially with our shutoff list, is not having current contact information. So we have phone numbers and emails usually on file. A lot of that stuff wasn't captured or just wasn't something that was provided once upon a time. But with COVID, we've moved a lot of things to online, so we require that type of information. But we've ran into trying to call people and their phone number's disconnected, or they've changed phone numbers and it's no longer their number. And so trying to do the outreach that we're doing to prevent utility shutoffs, or we're trying to get clarification on a business license, we want to be able to send out a letter of some sort to collect that data so that we have a better form to bring everything into an electronic communications like email. Everybody seems to use emails, or most people do, and to eliminate the cost of sending out notices, or for an example, dispatching out our water department. It costs money for us to do that. It costs us money to coordinate and try to set up to have the water turned off. And we don't want to shut people off. Our goal is to keep people's water on. And if we can't reach them to coordinate with anybody, it's a challenge. Or so that would save costs by not dispatching the water department out. And I know Levi had spoke on, needing another water person. I can say our department can keep one person in that department very busy. We are constantly communicating with the water department on people who have an emergency shut off, or we have notices that have to be hung on doors, or they have a water line break and, they have to go out and try to knock on people's doors. So a lot of this would help with a small cost savings. I don't know what that number would be because I don't know exactly what it is right now. But the next thing that we want to try to accomplish is, right now we have about 2,100 utility accounts. We currently bill out about 1,500 paper bills to each of these or to different citizens, whether they're businesses or residential. We have 27% estimated of accounts that are on paperless billing. We want to increase that by 10%. Not only will it be beneficial to the citizens, it'll be beneficial to the city. It'll be less cost for paper, less cost for mailing. It'll also be better for a lot of citizens, because I'm sure many of you have heard the post office has had lots of delays. They're not getting their bills to people in a timely manner, which they notified all of us back in October. They did a press release saying that the mailing system was going to slow down. So our goal with doing paperless billing not only is a cost saving and paper save, it's also to help the citizens receive their bills in a timely manner through our credit card software program. They send out, I utilize the program myself. I'm on paperless billing, I'm on auto pay, and I receive the email communications. They're very detailed. They will provide the citizens with everything they need. So our goal with this is to encourage and try to steer people towards a paperless system. We've been starting to do that with the shut-off list and contacting people saying, hey, if you utilize this system, you won't have that opportunity of the post office losing your bill. And we have actually, I just found out right before this meeting, we've had 15 requests come in to change to paperless billing, and they signed up for the express bill pay. So that was awesome to see that it's already working with just the personal interaction we do. I'm skipping yours. Okay, go ahead, Ben.
I figured I could add a bullet point to the finance department. So one thing that became glaringly obvious with the property tax consideration was that we lacked a short and long-term financial plan, something that we could use to objectively measure our fiscal health, and also where things like the Public Works Department fit into the financial plan for the city. And as we make that consideration, this time next year, when we do our strategic planning next year, I consider this a critical need of the city to develop that plan. It would be a working financial model, basically something that we update probably quarterly with actuals, and it would have cost drivers that could be adjusted. It's a pretty substantial undertaking. I've talked to a few council members about it. But it is definitely something that I see as a critical need of the city from a financial perspective.
And that's it.
Thanks, Marcy. Questions for Marcy? Kaylin?
So in terms of the conversion to paper billing, it sounds like there's a cost savings to the city.
Yes, there would be a cost saving. So not including the time that we spend for the manpower to process the billings and print them and get them to the post office. There's the cost of the mailing. And we have had 2 increases just in 2021 for mailers. We do have we have an agreement with the post office for our little postcards that we send out. And I think it's 45 cents for out of state and it's 40 cents for in state and 30 or 45 for out of state or something like that. But that adds up. It's about $500 a month just to send out just the cord stocks. That's not including all of the bills that we send out that are the large papers that we have to put in large envelopes. Like the county requires the full statement. So it's several pages. I think it's like 16 just for the county. And so we pay additional costs for large envelopes. We pay a cost for the 53 cents per envelope for a lot of our HOAs and things. So it would be a cost savings maybe gradually. It won't be like a hit, oh, we're going to save $500 a month. But I think over time, as we try to transition a lot of our people from paper billing to email communications, we will gradually start seeing a savings. Yes.
Okay. Well, what I'm wondering is if you could quantify it, including the time your office spends on it, and then offer that either a surcharge or a benefit to the customers to incentivize them, because
Yes, so that's actually something Ben and I recently spoke about, is putting something together in that form and looking at charging a surcharge, as well as maybe even giving a small credit, as like a 50-cent credit. So like the power bill, I get a 50-cent credit because I'm on auto pay and paperless billing. And that way it shows that we are not only just we just want them to cover the cost of us shipping, but there's an incentive to them to get a small discount, even if it's 50 cents, a small discount to help them be more motivated to go the route of paperless billing. Mm-hmm. So yes, that is something that I would like to look at and propose in the future.
Questions? Anybody else? So on your low income assistance program, what's the timeline for that? When's the grant run out?
It's till money's gone. So they're hoping that it lasts for 2 years. I think the state gave them like $1.4 billion. But it's for all of us. I think there was only one state that didn't opt into the program. Utah did. I know that groundwater and sewer is also utilizing this program, as well as the city. I've worked a lot with Dana. We've kind of bounced ideas off and provided input, or if we missed a meeting. So it's looking, they have projections of a year or two with the goal or mindset that it will go past that. Our hope is it will. The more people that show that they need the program and utilize the program, like the heat assistance, is where the push and priority will help shift that to become a priority to maintain the grant program. And the other benefit, though, that's outside of heat assistance is only offered during the winter months, whereas the water program is year-round or until funds run out. And you can apply for it more than one time, which the heat assistance is a one-time lump sum. They may be changing that as the program develops and grows. This is the first time that we've had a water assistant program. And I have worked with some of the state people that's like actually coordinating and helped develop the program. And they have made slight changes. Now they're not including garbage services and things you have to do a different grant approval or apply for, whereas before it was the whole utility bill. And that was just recently changed this month. So as we see things develop, I think we'll see some changes.
Great. It'd be good to get the word out so people know.
Yes, and we do.
I don't know how you guys are doing that, but that would be, I didn't know about it till now. I mean, not that I need it, but.
Oh, well, I apologize for that.
No, that's okay.
I've been working with the Multicultural Center as
Great.
well. I sent them our flyers that we received. I do still need to sit down and meet with them to kind of go more in depth about the program. But they also helped another citizen who's actively working on the applying process, and they're also providing us feedback on how they feel, how smooth or rough, or if there's anything that we could tweak. So, and we do mention it to every single person that we talk to that we know haven't paid a bill or may need to do a payment plan. We said, hey, we have this opportunity, and we'll send them that information. So,
Well, nice work. Thanks.
thank you. Any other questions? Thanks.
Thanks,
you.
Marcy.
Hi. Ben scheduled a really short amount of time for everybody, and we're a little behind schedule, so maybe I'll be a little quicker than the rest of my people.
I love the little digs at Ben.
Okay, so I'm Human Resources. Our department does all things people, from recruitment. Last year we did do all of the payroll. This year that has transitioned actually into the recorder's office. Benefits, insurance claims. personnel, budget. If it's people, we're involved in it. See how quick that was? Our accomplishments over the last year, I think I kind of give this to you every year on how many interviews we do, how many people we've hired. I feel like I almost should have been last in here just because everybody's kind of telling you what I do as we go through the departments, how many positions they want, how many employees they have. That takes up a ton of our time. In 2021, I sat through every interview that's listed up there, which, as you can imagine, is brutal at some point in the process. I am excited that we have hired so many full-time employees. It's a process. In 2022, I have a new HR assistant who is actually filling in as my hiring manager, so she will sit in on all interviews except for director level positions, which has freed up a lot of my time. We are currently fully staffed in a lot of areas that we haven't been in the past. I mean, obviously with the exception of the police department, so I'm really proud of that we've been able to fill those positions. Planning is doing really well when it comes to staffing, which, as you all know, has been a struggle over the years. We handle all of the benefits. We've implemented a new evaluation program that we're hopeful to get a lot of use out of this year, trying to streamline that process for supervisors. Evaluations can be really time consuming. I did a certification this year for the PDP professional that actually links into our evaluations. So it's basically a personality profile that we do that goes through how people communicate with each other in hopes that we can sit down now with teams and be like, okay, this is how each one of your team members communicates, and try to kind of make that better. I spent a lot of time with, I think what they meant to say was in my office, so I'm hopeful to kind of help that go a little farther. The main thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about today, honestly, is training. That's my biggest budgetary ask for this year. In 2019, we had started a program in coordination with the University of Utah. We had Trajina Halley came down here, and she did a 6 or 8 week program with us. They came on site. It was her and a couple other instructors from the University of Utah. They met with our managers, you know, hard conversations, how to lead stuff, how to take care of yourself, you know, the whole way of basically trying to get our managers to the point where we can not only recruit, but retain people, right? Because a lot of times when you see this turnover, not that it all falls on us as managers, but part of it has to come from the manager side, you know? And so trying to get that up and running again. It runs about $1,500 per manager that we put through that program. We try to do 20 to 25 at a time so that they, you know, it's worth their time to come down here and do it. We had great reviews of it last time. While no one likes HR to tell them they have to come sit in a room with an instructor for 6 hours in a day, at the end of the day, it seemed like the trainings were very useful. I didn't have a lot of negative, you know, feedback on those. So I definitely like to get that put back into place. Training is key, obviously during COVID. In-person trainings were none. You know, online trainings, there weren't a lot. So I'd really like to get back into that. There you go. That's my whole spiel.
Questions?
Danny, it sounds like it probably isn't necessarily a problem for us to drum up 20, 25 people for a training like that, but is that the kind of thing that we ever partner with the county on? I don't know if they do a similar training with the university.
I don't know. I can always reach out to Renee and ask her.
Okay.
I mean, that's
I
definitely
didn't know if
something
it
we
helps
could
you
look
get to
at.
the numbers if you're short or.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had the same question. I wonder about other agencies too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. And it, you know, when it was first set up in 2019, the plan was it was like a 3-step program, right? And we made it through step 1, and then COVID happened, and then we've had quite a bit of turnover. So obviously with the group that I would like to put through there's only 7 of us that have attended it before out of the 25. And so it'd be really beneficial to start kind of on the ground level, and then in theory, continue it each year, you know, to get us through the full thing. You never can have enough training. You know, knowledge is key. Everybody can learn. I mean, HR in itself is constantly evolving and changes all the time. So I know individual departments are going to budget for some training that are specific to those departments, where I'm looking more as a broad citywide kind of umbrella of training.
I guess just for me and the public, in the past, I know there have been some trainings council members have been invited to partake in, I think just because it would benefit us too. So I'm thinking, just offhand of like diversity, active shooter. And so I guess I would just say, yeah, please just let us know if there's anything that's appropriate for us, because, yeah, I mean, we
absolutely.
benefit too, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Anybody else? Questions for Danny? Thanks, Danny. Did you go under 10 minutes?
I'm well over 10.
All right.
Wyatt, you're up.
Oh, look who it is. Oh, well, did you do this on purpose? So we're distracted by your presentation. Oh, my goodness sakes. Oh, how cute is that?
Well, good morning, everybody.
So who do we have here?
This is my son, Wyatt Glenn. He's been participating in the planning department for 11 months and some number of days. But in addition to that, we do have some actual planning staff that's come on board. We have Jessica Thacker, who has been onboarding for the last 3 weeks as the assistant planner for the planning department. And then we're also now, as of this week, coordinating with Anna Anglin, who will be stepping into that planning and zoning administrator role. So moving forward, we should have a full department staff by April 1st or so, right around there. So jumping right into the department summary, really our main job and purpose is to process and approve development applications and coordinate with the community as we shape our land use and development code. So how we participate on that is processing business licenses, building permits, planning permits, and applications. And there's a wide breadth of what that means, everything from townhome plats to subdivisions, and then individual property developments into duplexes or changes and amendments to use. And that's how we really prioritize our time to interacting with the public. We also are able to participate on the Planning Commission, coordinating as the staff lead for the Planning Commission, and then participating on City Council through our resolution ordinances and city initiatives. We also, as the Planning Department, organize and coordinate our development review team, that DRT. Every planning application of a certain size or larger subdivisions, all of our larger projects will process through that development review team, which incorporates most of our development departments, so public works, engineering, water reclamation, even sustainability at this point. So coordinating our staff team to better help those project teams, development project teams, get their projects to a point that they're polished to come before Planning Commission or City Council, depending on the scope of that project. Our higher level objectives are to initiate and participate on larger regional planning, general plan update, strategy visioning exercises to inevitably bring that down into the land use and development code to most accurately represent the community's vision and how that actually in policy transfers out into how we approve and what we approve by use and structure type. And then the largest and most broad version of what we do is being a resource for the public. That's the opportunity for folks, whether they be a developer or property owner or a particular tenant of a type of use, come in and we facilitate whatever it is their dreams are, how to develop in this community and move whatever their goals are along through that process. Thanks, man.
I'm just laughing because your
Is he
Wyatt is like falling asleep.
Believe it or not, I tried to time this pretty well. You might have seen me in the hallway walking back and forth trying to get this little happy zone here.
The first person to ever fall asleep in a council meeting.
That's right. With our accomplishments, really we can categorize those similar to our building department, maybe engineering in a approval sense. So the number just within 2021, we've seen, despite what could be considered COVID lull, is actually this massive increase of development projects. Mostly in 2021, in the residential side, we've seen kind of a tamp down on the commercial development side. I'm thinking likely due to the limited operations most businesses are experiencing right now, but many people, because of COVID, are rethinking what it is they want to do with their properties, or development groups from outside of our community coming in and viewing Moab as an opportunity area. So we've begun to see a little bit of a increase on the smaller spectrum of commercial development, i.e. locals branching out and building commercial spaces or applying through business licenses, whether it be home occupation or contractor licenses, the kind of more local community bolstering up in that commercial aspect. But the residential component is where we've really seen a massive increase. I think Barry has a slide that represents that residential growth, residential building permits, and how that actually equates. But as the city council, I'm sure, is aware, we're experiencing a huge number of residential projects coming online in the form of apartments or townhomes. So in the number of right now, what we're looking at as proposed or approved or in the process in some degree is 774 units coming into Moab. And Nora Shepherd at the last strategic planning meeting had discussed the future of many of these bigger projects, some of those including Hvac, and then the USU and SITLA co-development of that area down by the campus there, as well as some private business owners that have ventured out into our commercial zone and are utilizing that commercial property as residential space, residential opportunity through apartments. So on the spectrum, and again, we're speculating here, but have the potential of a 5-year build out of about 1,042 additional units, and then reaching up into the realm of about 10 years, the potential of up to 3,600 units. Currently with our population size in the city, and again, this is just the city, not speaking about any of those projects that are currently going on in the county or some of their numbers, but we're looking at potentially some significant increases to our residential counts, but also how that factors down into our infrastructure to support those, whether that's our sewer infrastructure, water lines, or partnership with WISA. What we do, yeah, that's perfect. We'll keep going. So our objectives for this year, one thing that wasn't included on the slide that we've been very appreciative of so far is the ability to branch out and coordinate with consultants. So using our professional technical support budgeting to allow us to have a higher professional review and more initial integrated cooperation of our land use attorneys, Snow Christian and Martin New so far, but we do have Nathan racking on for as our legal review right now, as well as BAE is currently participating on our active employment household ordinance. So that ability to not feel quite as constrained in that way, to be able to produce something that is of a higher quality, we're appreciative of that. In addition to those, fulfilling our staff for full capacity operations. We've been in a deficit for this department and for a number of years, I'd say half a decade at least. I mean, summer prior to me coming on board was holding up the planning department in her role, and then Nora Shepherd coming in, and then me coming in. We've been able to maintain and continue to keep that ball rolling as far as these developments coming in, and what we owe to the public to continue to have a limited lag time on their developments. We understand, especially now, how critical it is with the cost of construction to have things operating in a term that it functions for those people, rather than a review that is exceeded by what the financing would allow. So when people are getting quotes that last 24 hours, we understand that's a little unreasonable for us to review projects in, but certainly within that 4 to 6 week time frame is where we're trying to keep it right now. We could easily have expanded that, but we're working at extra effort to keep that going. So hiring on this process is well needed, and I think to get us up to speed, and we're kind of using this terminology with our active employment household as well, as there's a keep-up component, but then there's also a catch-up. So we're at a workflow where with these additional staff members, we're going to start being able to keep up at a rate that we're happy with. We like to produce those turnaround times that developers are so used to, and being able to come in, have direct access to Barry or myself to move these projects along. But as we're looking into the future, there are bigger, more robust changes to the development land use code that are going to take more time. So even the 3 of us that are going to be filling the department hopefully by April are going to be at full steam ahead, probably 110% capacity, trying to make that happen. So I think we're right in the range of pushing, and we don't want to let off the gas pedal just yet. As far as streamlining development, that goes back into that same concept of, with Jessica Hvac, our new assistant planner, has been working pretty diligently as she is getting familiar with the code, getting familiar with our review process to evaluate where there are discrepancies, where there are issues with how we do things, or things that we've been missing, areas of code that contradict themselves or processes that contradict themselves. So allowing us to not only process in a very consistent way, but in an expedited way, because we know the breadth of our code and what those idiosyncrasies might be between code sections. So between both of those, we have sufficient resources. We have what we need. We're just now getting up to speed to go and do it. And then the last is to integrate development code amendments and address those discrepancies that we are finding, and implement the determined strategies from the council. There's within Moab this really deep and broad movement towards development. There's an opportunity happening right now. With this opportunity, we can look at other communities, whether it be counties or cities. We can maybe say Summit County or Park City for references. I'm pretty familiar with that. And see where they may have made right turns, where maybe a left turn could have put them in a trajectory that might not have put their community quite in their place. So not taking away from where Park City has landed, but I do know there's a huge number of the population there that has had to leave. I could see Moab following that same path, where I think we do care about our locals and our long-term historic locals and community businesses and that more heritage-oriented community, and most of that residing in the county, but also within the city, and want to protect and preserve those things. But again, it needs to be, I think, the direction of the council, where we want to see our community go, and we're so fortunate to be having a visioning process right now that will time out really well with our previous general plan update that will set us up and tee us off for the next general plan update to really, in these critical years, and I think Nora last year had specified this is a turning point for Moab. I think it's faced 2 previous pivotal turning points, so this council has a really exciting and important role to shape where this large ship is going to be shifting to, where that direction trajectory is going to go. So we have the luxury of getting to sit down with council and the planning commission every couple of weeks, so feel very comfortable engaging with you. But every time there's an opportunity for us to maybe step aside and have some more in-depth philosophical conversations about how we can use our planning tools to shape the community, we're always open to that. So I'll cut it there.
Questions for Wyatt or Corey? Wyatt's out. So
I just wondered when Wyatt was going to be a planner.
I was curious, yes, if Wyatt's toy package of benefits was sufficient, but we'll wait for him to get back to us on that. Yes. So I just had a few general questions. So I heard you say we have sufficient resources. I think one of the things that's probably been frustrating for planning in the communities, it seems like with so many things, but including planning, we've had to be reactive for a long time, and we haven't really been able to be proactive. And I didn't know if you saw the workload lifting, so that maybe we could do that. It sounds like it a little bit in the sense of the discussion about looking at other communities, but I didn't know. I mean, everything's so new. I didn't know if you had a chance to really think about that.
Yeah. That is kind of one of those comments that maybe didn't articulate very well, is that where we're at this pace where we will have Jessica and Anna coming on
Yeah.
board, and then how we're organizing that dynamic and the delegation of processes that will be able to hopefully streamline. Sign permits are taking fewer days. Building permits are taking fewer days. Larger planning projects are going to take that natural event versus having delays that are because we're overburdened. That's where we're I think up to sufficient speed with these three folks coming in. As far as us expanding and getting into the larger realm of planning, which is right now the critical point, that's where that supporting and technical budgetary allowance to have us coordinate with outside consultants or allow for more time for our planning staff to organize and do those things in-house, which most of those we could do, but of course we're going to want to reach out to professionals in some of these instances to have them cooperate. So as in saying, we're getting to the place where we're going to be able to keep up now, but we still have a lot to work to do to catch up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the other thing I think was maybe more of like a request for training and just maybe a question for you to think about whatever you might recommend. I've tended to wonder if it would be worth having a workshop, or maybe it's just more of a one-on-one, but I don't know if the city already has a simple document. Do we have anything that kind of walks like the lay person who's just thinking about doing something through the steps of and the vocabulary of what it takes from point A when you conceptualize a project to get it through and the different steps. And I just didn't know, do we have a document like that walks people through that? Or I just think sometimes, even as a council member, it gets confusing sometimes with some of the terminology. So I thought that might be a training that the council could use, that the public could benefit from, if it sounds like a good idea. And along those lines, just another training that might be useful moving forward is we've been talking recently about additional active employment household units and how that helps with number of units, but how it doesn't tick some of those. I can't remember the three terms we've talked about, but maybe it doesn't tick the affordability item as much. And so I didn't know, given, it seems like the legislature in Utah keeps taking away tools that other communities are using for housing that have been successful. I didn't know if there might be a training or workshop possibility to kind of discuss, the tools at our disposal, say, to deal with those other two factors. So that was kind of, I guess, more of an ask, but, or if you thought it was a good idea.
I think both of those are good ideas. I think we do and have been generating, I think when Laura was in our building department, had been working on flow charts, decision trees, and explanation areas, both for building plan, because they are so integrated. With Laura leaving, we kind of had left that open-ended, and this is where Jessica is actually stepping up really well of her own initiative in many cases to, as she is learning, create those trees, flow charts, and then explanations. So we're hoping to do that. And some of our more attainable, but also somewhat complex, like ADUs, that's something that is very approachable to most property owners. But there are a lot of, as we've seen with passing the ordinance, complexities and how that works. And if you do this, then it's this, and then it's this. And again, that pretty much sums up planning. So when people come in and say, can I do this? It's yes, if, or it depends. So we can never really say no or yes all the way. Everything is so subjective based on property. So to the best of our ability, we try to box that in of here's what typically might happen, but every case is so unique, which is why it does take so much of our time, every single project. So with that, as far as that more in-house, very tangible, we are working on that and hopefully publish that on the website for a number of things, and then also have that in our planning department. Would love to do a workshop to get council up to speed with that, and then we can publish any suggestions you might have in addition to that. As far as there was a second part of that question I was attempting to answer.
It's okay. Yeah, no, it's probably part of a longer discussion and not really a department report, but it might I'm just thinking it might just help for the discussions tomorrow, but I'll think about it and I'll follow up with you. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Thanks, Corey and
Thanks,
Wyatt.
everybody.
It worked. That would have been interesting to see.
Yeah. I could do it, but I'd have to go to the hospital probably. He's a lot bigger than me. Yeah, simple summary. Basically, I'm in charge of all things construction in the city of Moab. That covers everything from a new roof, new furnace, to hotels, cell towers, retaining walls, that type of thing. We spend a lot of time talking with the public about what their projects want to be, what they're hoping to do, and working with Corey and the other departments to make that happen. And as Corey said, we don't ever say, no, you can't do that. For me, it's how do you do it? You want to start a business? Okay. Where is it going to be? What building? And how are you going to construct that to make it happen? It's never a yes or no on our part. It's, well, if you do these steps, you can go this way. If you do these steps, you can go this other way. We also spend a lot of time just discussing what's going on in town with the public. They're obviously very curious about what's happening, what the city's doing. Frequently, I'll go do an inspection and I'll spend 15 minutes talking about housing with people, and then the neighbors will come over and we'll have that kind of interaction with them, which is great. I think it's very valuable. It does eat up a large amount of time, which is good. We should be spending time with the public doing that. It does kind of make scheduling the rest of the day a bit of a challenge. We do a lot of business license inspections, which is pretty much my purpose, to make sure the building is being maintained properly. I'm not going to walk in and say, well, the code changed last year, you have to fix all this stuff. It's more an evaluation of, well, you've got holes in your firewall, let's get those fixed. That type of process, I'd like to do more of that, because the only time I get in the buildings is when the business license changes. If it's been a business in town that's been there for 25 years, I don't get in there. This is something that I've talked with the fire department about quite a bit, how we can kind of make sure our buildings are being taken care of as we go. Some of these older buildings, as we're all aware, are in pretty rough shape, and it would be nice to get them into good shape and then prevent the newer ones from falling back into that kind of shape. As everybody knows, Moab is really busy, really growing. We're seeing more new contractors come to town than I've ever seen before. Where the construction value went up over the last calendar year over $2 million. And that's without building a new hotel, which would have been $12 million by itself. Everybody wants to do something right now, and the cost of construction doesn't seem to be slowing them down. And the price of materials last year went up. I fully expected that people would cancel projects or just, yeah, never mind. And there have been a few people that have done that, but it doesn't seem to be phasing anybody. The extra $50,000 to $100,000 to build a home is not stopping them. The larger apartment projects doesn't seem to be a problem for them. We've seen an increase, like Corey said, in the residential projects. That's largely apartments or projects like Lions Back, and it's a nightly rental. In my opinion, it's residential based on the type of construction. Even though it is going to be rented nightly, they're small units. We are thinking that there'll be, just kind of a guesstimation, 170-ish new dwellings next year. About half of those will be nightly rentals. The other half will be apartments or manufactured homes scattered around town or in Grand Oasis. Grand Oasis is looking at 25 to 40 new homes in the next year and a half. So the change in the projects is significant from what was hotels to this residential concept, which is great. We need that stuff. This is a chart we started a couple of years ago based on a grandma request from one of the newspapers. It's just dealing with new residential units. It's excluded the nightly rentals like the Entrada project and some of the condos on Williams Way. The grandma request was pretty interesting, so we decided to go back even further in time to 2007 to see what was going on before the housing crash. You can see that it did slow down 2008, 2012, and then it's been steadily going up since then. The orange line includes multifamily. So in 2014, that's the Aspen Cove Apartments on Williams Way. 2019 is the MAP Senior Housing Apartment project. The boost this year is the 94 condos in the Cane Creek condos down there across from the Public Works Yard. With what's being proposed in kind of the Mill Creek area, that could be another few hundred dwellings, depending on how soon they get through and if they actually do it. So the change from commercial to residential is real. It's just taken a while. As far as going forward, we're really busy keeping up we're treading water with bricks in each hands, trying to make that work. Could definitely use some help to communicate with the public, do some inspections. That would free up time so I can do plan reviews and communicate with the builders and developers and ask their questions. One thing that Corey and I have talked about a lot, and he touched on a little bit, and Ronnie too, was trying to streamline the process and provide more information to the public. We know we've got a very unique vocabulary and concepts. Most people only get one building permit in their life, if even that, and they come in and they start asking questions and they don't know what we're talking about. So we'd really like to improve the webpage, some brochures. We've got some ideas. We've been making lists. I've been asking the contractors when I go out, what do you need from me to make this easier? I can't draw the plans for them, and they wouldn't like what I drew anyway, but finding out what they need on their end is important to me, and I'd like to keep doing that. It is a frustrating process. Anybody that's been through it, they know it's kind of a challenge. So anything I can do to make that easier, I think, is worthwhile. Any questions?
Questions for Barry?
Nobody?
I guess not, Barry. You're doing too good of a job.
I should have brought a kid.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll expect that next time.
I'll do that. I'll make him drive me over.
Okay.
Right on.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks.
I know, so I was wondering if it was worth having a short discussion how you want to accommodate that. I'm afraid that I scheduled my day anticipating a 12 o'clock end, and we're maybe 2/3 of the way through.
Yeah,
and so
I did too.
do we want to start earlier tomorrow? I don't know how you want to handle it.
Can't start earlier because it's been noticed at 10. But we can go later. So.
And that works for us.
All right, well, we have, what, you have to, noon is your drop dead time?
I could flex a little if I thought it was a little, but it doesn't seem like it's going to be a little.
I'll be really fast.
Let's just,
But there's like 5 more people.
let's have Summer go, and then we can adjourn until tomorrow. Or have a conversation about how we want to do that.
Or, I could, if everyone else can stay, I could watch the recording this evening,
Right.
if you'd rather do that, and I'd be okay with that.
All right, let's have a conversation after Summer.
I'll be really fast, Kaylin, I promise. I speak really fast anyway, so it is what it is. Okay, I am the recorder's office. Well, Stephanie and I are the recorder's office. We are responsible for maintaining all city records. Any contract that goes into and out of the city, we have to have a copy of it. Ben has been really great about making sure we do get a copy of it. We are also responsible for administering elections, as you all know. Well, yes, all of you know. We act as the purchasing agent, so all of the bids go through our department. We manage the contract with our IT service provider, which is ProVelocity, and we handle accounts payable and payroll. We are also the department that attends all the meetings with all of you guys, and for the water board as well. We are also responsible for preparing and maintaining the minutes and making sure that the audio recordings and all of the record documents are in compliance with state code and posted in all of the necessary locations. Our accomplishments. We've had some changes. It's been a ride. I was able to obtain my certified municipal clerk designation this last year. That actually requires about 120 hours of education and anywhere from 10 to 12 years of administrative and or governmental experience. It's a pretty detailed program. Beyond that, they have a master municipal clerk designation, which is my goal for next year, which is on the next slide. And Stephanie is currently working toward her CMC. We did complete our first ranked choice voting election. Some liked it, some didn't. That's enough said about that. One of the biggest things we tackled this year were records requests. We had over 65 records requests. Several of them were significant in that they had 3,000 to 5,000 worth of pages that were responsive records to that request. And then we also issued 10 bids for various departments. And I would say probably our biggest goal moving forward is to keep working towards those certifications, so additional training. We do have some paper files that are on the floor in our record storage area that really should be relocated into protective storage locations, so want to get that organized, probably try to digitize more of our records so that they're easily accessible for records requests and or just general knowledge for the city. And then we do have a goal to implement a citywide computer replacement and IT schedule. Luckily, we were able to do some pretty good changes in the council chambers to allow for hybrid meeting situations. They're a little clunky, but we can make them work. And just going forward, we do have several computers that are past their useful life. And so in our budget request, we do have a computer replacement plan for approximately 30. Our IT company did provide me with a list. It's not inclusive, but we have about 105 machines total. Well, about that. There's a little more because we're missing a couple of laptops that were not on the list, but a lot of those, once they get past a certain point, they don't work with certain software that we have. So it's important to make sure that we're keeping up on those so that our systems are still functioning. Was that fast enough? Okay.
That is?
That's it.
Any questions for Summer? Yes.
I do, unfortunately.
No, you're good. I'll try to answer fast.
So it seems like in addition to records, like adding more records, one thing that I've noticed, and I think other people have too, is the ability to access records and just the indexing and searchability, like just as like trying to find something that the council did last year, if I don't remember what date it was on, it's like, I have to and the ordinances and resolutions are just listed by number, and it's like I just have to manually go through the.
There is an index in our system, and if you go to the website and you search through the public portal, it should pop most of that up. And we're maintaining that record system as much as we can.
Yeah.
you know, it's important to make sure that that's up to date, so we are staying on top of that as, you know, as much as possible to make sure those are available, but it may make it a little bit easier if we could figure out a better searchable system.
Yeah, okay. If you have that on your radar, because I feel like the Civic Plus search engine, there's
It's
something.
clunky.
Yeah, it's clunky and it doesn't seem to,
Narrow the search for what you're looking for. I've run
or
into
have
that
the same
myself.
sort of intelligence that other search engines do to
Right.
get you to your desired results
Okay,
easily.
and we are due for, which may be something that Lisa touches on, we are due for a web update, and it may be something that we can talk to them about, making that a little bit more user-friendly.
Great.
Any other questions for Summer? Alrighty, thanks. All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more presentations. I know Kalen has to leave. He informed me that when we first got here, he had a hard stop at noon. I also don't want to inconvenience staff. Ronnie, I'm not sure what your schedule is like. If you can stick around for another 30 minutes or so, we could probably.
I could probably
get-
stay till 12:30, yeah.
Okay, that'd be great. And then, you know, I don't want to inconvenience staff on a Saturday. So, Kalen, if you can stick around as long as you can and head out.
Yes, I'm
Let's just-
negotiating that.
Okay. Let's continue, and I don't see Chuck, so we're going to move right to Obie.
That's me.
Oh, you're Mark.
Yeah, Chuck.
I just saw Chuck on here, and so I didn't realize.
Chuck is home sick.
You were Chuck today.
Yeah.
All right, Mark,
I'll be
thanks.
Chuck today. Okay, I'll make this quick. Sounds like everybody's in a hurry. Okay, engineering department. So we deal a lot with federal agencies. That is very loud. Coordinating with UDOT primarily, they're our big one, but we also deal with environmental quality and water rights quite a lot. In RCS, we have a project coming up where we're going to be doing some stream bank armoring and around some of our bridges. We work with the Public Works Department, Wastewater, and Parks. Basically, when we want to do a capital improvement project, that's the engineering department that handles the planning and design and oftentimes identifying that problem in the first place, and then we carry it through to the end to successful construction. Like Corey touched upon earlier, we work with the planning department. When we've got a developer comes in, they want to do something. We look at the site plan, the infrastructures, the drainage, make sure that it conforms to our criteria design documents. Chuck, city engineer, is also the floodplain administrator for the city. Here's where we can kind of touch on our staff. Beach and Bosch, he's been our construction inspector for, I think, about 5 years now. Before that, it was just sort of handled on a, ad hoc sort of, whoever could get out there and look at it. Now we've got him on the ground looking at that stuff whenever we need it. So if you're ever driving by like the water project that's on Mill Creek right now, you might see Beecham out there keeping a close eye on things. The GIS system, this gets used by, I think, most other departments. If you're not familiar with what GIS is, it's we maintain a geolocated inventory of just about everything that we can. So that's sewer, water pipes, manholes, water valves. We have our streets categorized in all sorts of different ways. We've got all sorts of things, as you might imagine. And we keep that stuff updated and we distribute it to other departments as needed. That's Deedar Charles, if you've ever seen her walking around. She's our GIS admin. She's currently getting certified as such as well. We recently took on Tricia Stott as our safety person. This is a new, almost a new position. This position used to exist many years ago, but it was absorbed into other job descriptions. Beecham shared this a little bit with Tricia, and we've kind of gotten by, but this is finally now a full-time position that the engineering department has taken on. We coordinated with the UDOT Highway 191 widening project. This also included some storm drainage facilities that became the city's after the fact that should improve drainage coming down and across Main Street on the north end of town. We are currently managing the new well number 12. We have a casing in the ground. We're going back out to bid again for the facilities, the installation of the pump and whatnot. Ongoing right now, if you drive down Mill Creek Drive at all, you'll see that we're doing the water line out there. Hopefully that has not inconvenienced anybody terribly. We're replacing an old line. It'll connect from the tank up on Powerhouse Lane all the way over to near where the Beershide building is, past Mills. Transit pilot program, this came out of the hotspot project identification. We will be implementing well, you're well familiar with this one. I probably don't need to describe that one. And potentially taking on a new employee for that as well, a transit coordinator. Am I going fast enough, by the way?
Well, I think we all know about all these projects.
Yeah.
So the one that's new to me, and I don't know if others, is the city safety program implementation. I'm not really familiar with that, but I think everything else we're pretty familiar with.
Okay, we can skip all that stuff then. The city safety program implementation, that's just since the safety position is now a new position in a sense, we sort of have to develop that as a position and a department. So that will be Chuck and Tricia working together to build that from the ground up. Okay. We've got several water bond projects on the way. Same with sewer. We can go through those if you like, but we're upgrading our GIS system all the time. This was Eric Johansson, one of the engineers who started here, I believe, 12 years ago almost, started our GIS system from scratch, and we've kept that going, and we've kept it updated. The city safety program, again, the same. We creating that program from scratch and getting it going. The water utility resource management plan, I think you're all familiar with that one. Continue to assist in development plan reviews. That's a sort of a day-to-day thing that we do. And the impact fees, this would be, so we already have sewer and water impact fees that we levy against new developments. This would be additional impact fees for parks, safety, i.e. police, stormwater, and roads. We'll also be managing the NRCS flood projects. This is, we're getting funding through NRCS to improve stream channel dynamics and armoring around our bridges, several of our bridges. And the Pat Creek pedestrian bridge, which is, I think you're all familiar with, behind the Episcopal Church. We'll be installing a proper ADA compliant, safe bridge to cross Pat Creek there over to the sleep-in.
Questions for Mark?
So does Public Works have their own safety program or park? It seems like the physical infrastructure is kind of the most obviously dangerous area of the city.
Yeah, so I'm sure they do, they have their own sort of eye on safety. And in the past, the safety position was at Public Works. That decision was made to move that over to engineering. Tricia will be overseeing the general safety program for Public Works as well. She'll be making sure that equipment inspection schedules are being followed. So she'll kind of follow up on a higher level on that stuff.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Thanks, Mark / Chuck.
Yeah.
Obi.
All right. I'm Obi. I'm on the Wastewater Department. Basically two different
divisions, let's say. One is collections. We collect sewer from basically 4th East to the treatment plant. And then we treat sewer for the entire valley, including Gis and San Juan. We take septage from, all the pit toilets in the area as well. The accomplishment is we treated all the waste and we collected all the waste.
That's very much appreciated.
Yeah. And we pass pretty well most of the time. So for objectives, you can read through these. Some of these will be in budget. The only one that really I want to talk about is the food service establishments, restaurants. Grease is a problem that we've had. It affects the plant in negative ways, and it causes backups. Right now, we have a pretty robust grease testing program. The problem is we have about 10 or 12 restaurants that don't have a grease trap, and probably another 12 or 15 that we can't get a test out of because of the way they're piped. There probably is somewhere where we could force them to change that, but it would be better coming from you guys. Just because it'd be a heavy lift, it'd be a lot of money to a lot of people.
Did you say 10 to 12?
Probably like 25 to 30 total, maybe 20 to 30. So we make every new place get a grease trap, but this is just people that have been around a long time that haven't had one. So grandfathered places, I would say.
Can you quantify the cost to your department of not having a grease trap, and then we could adjust the fee schedule to reflect that?
We could. We could try. Yeah.
Any questions for Obi?
Can you remind us, does the grease trap also have some crossover with the health department? I feel like maybe, do they inspect that sort of stuff too, or is it mainly you guys? I couldn't remember.
It's mainly us.
Okay.
There will also be some major capital projects on collection.
Yeah, like
systems.
I think it was a bond, $6.5 million bond, correct? Yeah. Which was tied to the, the sewer increases from last year.
Oh, okay. Anything else for Obi? You get the prize for being the quickest presentation.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Annie.
All right, well, we'll start with the pool, or the Moab Aquatic and Recreation Center. I think one of the beautiful things about the MRAC is that it serves almost every demographic of the community. I think people think about the open swim hours and think that defines the pool, but we have lap swimming, we have water aerobics at a side, we do kayak practice in the winter for kayaks, and on what we call the dry side, we have programs for everyone as well, from gentle yoga classes to pretty intense spin classes. So that facility really does serve the whole community. Our accomplishments for last year, one, we reopened operations after the COVID closure, and it was very challenging. Most of the staff was furloughed, and bringing them back was a challenge, just with all the competitive staffing within Moab and some of our pay structure. We're not able to bring most of them back. So staffing has been a challenge since we reopened, and it probably will be again this summer. I think probably our biggest accomplishment was that our lifeguards saved a life. So our lifeguards go through tremendous training, but in reality, most people never have to use them in real life. And so we did have an incident last fall. It was in the evening, so every lifeguard that was there was 17 or under, and they did a tremendous job. So they had him out of the pool, started life-saving techniques, and had EMS there within 7 minutes. So it was a great accomplishment. Also, we're continuing to increase our special events, our classes, and our pool offerings. For next year, we want to continue to build on those more opportunities and hear from the community what they'd like to see at the center. We're working with a consultant right now on a feasibility study, so we might be implementing a little bit of a fee structure change next year. And also, the pool is now going on about 11 years old, and things are starting to fall apart. So we want to develop a very realistic capital maintenance program. And then for sports, we'll have Patrick come.
All right, thank you. So yeah, I'm Patrick, and I do the rec program, sports program within the rec department. So our department consists of 2 full-time, and up until COVID, 1 part-time position. We're down to 1 full-time. We're looking to hire the second full-time position. We've got some applicants. In the meantime, I've been busy with serving. We see about 1,500 local youth a season, per year. And if you factor in, roughly 2 family members per person, we're seeing 4,000 plus of the community, so it's a ton of public interaction. Up until recently, we had always done the annual Turkey Trot 5K and Easter egg hunt. In the last couple of years, we've added the 4th of July and free movie Moab, about 12 to 15 screenings a year. We manage the Center Street Ballpark, gym, and Sun Court. And so as Levi touched on earlier, all those facilities are sort of in need of upgrades, and we're working with Public Works on trying to get a plan for that. We do all the local programs at these facilities as well as rentals and events. Go to the next one. So last year, we saw a roughly 30% increase in youth sports participation, and these numbers were higher than 2017 through 19, highest I've seen in quite a number of years. And that was pre-COVID. So with that, we a little bit busier. That's more uniforms, more coaches, more field space, a little bit more of everything. And so staffing is always big. Luckily, we've been able to partner with the school district, as always. We had some meetings earlier this year with the superintendent to make sure we could utilize that new middle school facility. We've got a huge demand for indoor rec space. And I got a tournament there next weekend for volleyball. And then we just re-implemented a number of programs that were canceled in 2020 last year, and with huge success, with bigger numbers than ever. So that's been a big one. Let's see. So for next year, always looking to increase offerings. Sometimes it's all we can do just to offer our traditional programs and just kind of stay afloat. But I have high hopes for staffing, this coming year, so that we can sort of increase what we do for adult programming and seniors. It's sort of where we're at. Any questions on sports stuff?
Questions for Patrick or Annie? All right.
Just a quick one. So I think there's been some discussion about kind of a longer term parks and probably I don't know if recreation's part of that, like a master plan. Is that kind of part of this or coming later? Yeah. Okay.
And I apologize. That was there was some confusion on my part because I kind of combined 4 departments into a single under Annie's umbrella. So
that's okay. I didn't know if it covered. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kelly, new director over at the Moab Arts and Recreation Center, the MARC. So we do a couple different things over there. As the Arts Center, we provide winter class offerings, and this year they included several painting classes, resin jewelry, paper making, tea blending. We also host the Art Walk in the summer and fall, so we partner with local businesses and galleries for Saturday evenings where you can come, and this is a free community event. We also host the markets, which we will be moving this year back to Swanee Park. We organize that. We also do the summer camp in partnership with the Recreation Department and the pool. And then as kind of a community center, we have rental space and equipment. So our center is used for a variety of things, from meetings to private parties to yoga classes and other events. And then we also have a co-working space in our downstairs room, and this is used by locals as well as kind of tourists coming in, passing through town. So in the last year, the kind of regular programming occurred. We had the Red Rock Arts Fest in October, and this starts off with the chalk drawing competition, and then there's community workshops that are, some of them are free, some are paid, depending on what we're offering. and those go throughout the week, and it ends with the Streets Fest with the concert and vendors and art sales. We also had a really successful holiday craft fair in December of last year. We got really good feedback on that, and it's a great way for people to come and shop locally for holiday gifts. And then so far this year, we've been running our winter classes. These have been really successful, and this is something that we really would like to be able to expand on in the future. So based on feedback, we've had a lot of people say we'd love to be taking classes on a more regular basis. So expanding those into either the summer season or trying to offer something on a more regular basis. The co-working space was also expanded over the last year. We got a grant from the governor's office, so we were able to have more equipment and resources for that space, and it does see a lot of use on a daily basis. And then we also did some public art install, so outside City Hall we've got a bench. We did contribute some funding to there's a lovely sculpture that's been installed in the library that's in memory of Kylan and Crystal. And then we did some things like mosaics over at the Mark, bike rack, Art Trails Partnership, and then the HMK crosswalk with the kids. And that's kind of what we were doing the last year. So coming up in the next year, something that I touched on earlier, we'd really love to add more classes. We see these as a benefit to the community. People get to meet new people, explore new things, get a little bit more involved. We also are looking into rebranding, going over our mission and vision, and kind of doing that. We found that there's a lot of confusion with the 3 different recreation departments that we have, so arts, the pool, and the gym, and so just kind of being a little bit more clear so that people aren't calling us and expecting the pool. And then in terms of our public art projects, something that we like to do there is have more community involvement in those. So it's great to see art around town, and that's been something that makes our community really unique, but having a little bit more of a hands-on element for the community in those. We would like to expand our artists' co-working spaces and resources. So these we found are really there is a need in the community for these spaces. We have 4 spots right now that are studio spaces, and they're full. So trying to expand on what we offer for artist rental space and use. And then we would like to just continue improving the events that we already host. So the markets, the art walks, things like summer camp, all of that, just making sure that we're breathing new life into it every year and bringing people back. So something that we'd like to do is create more awareness for what the Mark is and what we do, and we can do that at all of our events. We're trying to create a little bit of an info brochure to have at the front of the Mark, so when people come in, they can read about what we do. And then we have been doing a lot of work on having surveys for all of our events and our classes so that we can take that feedback and offer programs that people would like to see, and then make sure that we're just improving continuously on that. We are interested in having a 3rd full-time staff member, so that has been in the past a part-time position, but with the additions of our co-working space growing, our facility rentals growing, offering things like our Artists in Residence program, just being able to have another full-time person that's always in the office, even if we're out at a market or putting things together around town. Any questions?
Questions for Kelly?
Probably a long shot, but thanks for getting the grant with the governor's office for expansion of the co-working space. I'm guessing there probably isn't money in there also then to help pay for, if we're going to expand a person from part-time to full, if part of what they're doing is working on the co-working space and making it possible. Are there funds in there, do we think, from the governor's office to help with that?
So the way that the application was written, it's very specific to what the money was going towards.
Okay.
So we're kind of working on finishing those projects. There's a little bit of wiggle room to amend it, but not for that.
Oh, no, it's fine. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and finally, parks. What the department does is we have 5 full-time staff members who accomplish a lot for being 5 people. So they maintain our 5 larger community parks along with several other smaller areas that you may not think about, like Circle Park or Dixie Park. They maintain the Middle Creek Pathway. They assist in street trees and right-of-way landscaping and maintenance. They take the lead on the holiday decorations and also support a lot of special events. And so our biggest accomplishment last year is that we maintained a high level of service and standards within our parks with limited staffing. And I know the 1 bullet line doesn't sound like a lot, but if you knew what they accomplished in a week, you would be extremely impressed. I would love to give you numbers of number of acres mowed, pounds of leaves collected, number of sprinkler heads. It would go on and on. So what that staff does and with the pride they take in their work in a week is pretty amazing, because sometimes their job is less than pleasant. So our objectives for next year, I think the biggest one that the need has been coming for quite a while is to develop a citywide parks master plan. And this will encompass some of the other departments we heard from earlier too, as well as just parks. We also want to research and implement some water saving measures at our parks. They actually use less water than I would have imagined they had, but I think our watering practices could be improved upon. And we also want to engage the community more in volunteer efforts in our parks.
Questions for Annie? Well, you guys do an excellent job. Thank you so much. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. I'll be quick, too, I promise. I'm communications engagement, and as you know, I work on a variety of different services, basically, to the community and also to the city, including, I'm basically responsible in large part for managing all areas of public communication for the city and outreach to the community. And, there's a whole list of what those responsibilities are, but most of you are pretty familiar with them. In the last year, especially in the fall, crisis communications became pretty important. There were a lot of issues going on with the police department and, various investigations going on. And so we Carla and I worked very closely to develop plans and implement those in order to sort of quell that and, get things kind of back to normal here for us. I've got a fairly extensive list here of the various projects that I worked on in the last year, just so you all will have some kind of sense of it. But in terms of long-term projects, I worked with Love Communications to develop the naming and branding for the transit project that's going to be happening starting this year. I'm right now working very closely with Future IQ on the outreach and visioning outreach for the community visioning project, doing all the materials for, announcing the different phases and getting people to participate. And I'm pleased to tell you, as an update from yesterday, that we've had over 600 people so far take the survey. So that's pretty exciting since it's only been out for a week. And there's a variety of other things that are, with other departments that I work with on a regular basis. Property tax outreach was a big thing last year. Ranked choice voting outreach was a big thing. And certainly the flooding that we had in August and September, we did a lot of outreach to let the community know what the city crews could do to help them, and the sandbags were available, et cetera. We're doing right now the water main replacement. We added TextMyGov to the website, which is growing in use, and I'll keep pushing that out to remind people, but we have been getting people sending in questions or using it to look for information, so that's interesting and exciting. And also, as Summer mentioned, we are due for another website redesign this year. It's about an 8 to 9 month project with Civic Plus, and it's free. It's part of our regular contract with them. In the process of that, I will be reaching out to all of you to ask you for insights about things you like about the website or what you don't like. it'll be a complete redesign, and, you know, I'll be working with individual departments and certainly with administration on that. But, you know, whatever insights you have, please feel free to share those. I know Kaylin's talked to me about a few things off and on that, you know, have been concerns of his or things that you find hard to find, and those are definitely issues we'd like to correct in that process. And I haven't talked about branding in here, but, you know, we've for several years talked about, you know, we sort of moved to this kind of the logo that we're using, but I know there's a desire on all of our parts to, you know, find something that's a little more attractive and engaging. And, you know, it's an expensive process to really do that right, like about $50,000 or more. So that's something that over the long term, you know, is always on my list, but we'll be considering it. And then, you know, as I said, crisis communications was a big part of what happened over the last year. And it actually, I'm also working on developing a crisis communications plan that we can implement. And that's you know, it's kind of a long-term project, but it would give us, you know, guidelines and sort of templates for various things that might come up. I mean, you can't address every single one in a crisis communications plan, but, you know, it's important for us to have that, and it's definitely one of the things I work on when I'm not in the middle of other things. And I also work individually with the departments on various projects that they have coming up, so developing materials and doing outreach both with social media and press releases and talking to the press and putting things on our website. And that's just a standard, you know, daily, weekly thing that, you know, happens here at the city. My objectives for this coming year really involve expanding outreach and engagement, and these are things that, you know, I think about all the time and we talk about all the time. But I'd like to work with local groups to broaden our outreach and also continue creating an annual calendar. And the department heads have been really helpful with that process this year, especially. There's a variety of different, you know, new types of outreach, you know, that I would like us to consider, including city walks and doing more of the neighborhood meetings and that sort of thing. Expanding the uses of surveys and our website and, you know, town halls and a variety of other options. And particularly, I would really like to see us, you know, do a contract annually for some sort of engagement platform that we can integrate with our website. You know, the county is using Bang the Table, and that's something I've been looking at actually for about a year. Civic Plus also has Civil Space, which is very similar to what Bang the Table does. The cost for that is about $10,000 to $15,000 a year, and that's been the drawback in the past, you know, is just finding the funding for it. But I really think it would be very helpful for us, and we could drive more people to our website, and it also gives us a way to really have a dialogue right there on the website with our community, and I think it could be extremely helpful. Any questions?
Can you explain what Bang the Table is? Sorry, I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's a that's the name of the company, but it's a civic engagement platform. So basically, you can put information about projects that you're working on your website, and it has a way for residents to actually ask questions right there and for staff to actually respond right there. You can add all kinds of information as the project moves forward. It's really kind of it's a very robust opportunity for residents to kind of tell us what they think, but also get their questions answered sort of all in one place.
So is it kind of like you have a running chat or something that's visible to people who go there?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, you would see like all of the questions and all of the information that's come up that's been asked and answered.
Anything else for Lisa? Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, Mila. You have less than 2 minutes.
All right. Ready?
Make this sustainable. Okay. My department is responsible for resource conservation, community resiliency and preparedness,
all of our outreach and also policy and advocacy surrounding everything related to sustainability, which is a lot of things. So that can mean whatever is happening at the time or looking forward into the future as far as our sustainability plan. This is also practical things as far as like our actual waste management in city buildings, and then looking forward to our sustainability action plan, and then even further forward onto like state policy and things like that. In 2021, that's what I meant. Oh, water conservation plan, right, the update was 2021, actually, that should be 2021. We wrote the water conservation plan, started a number of other projects. I'm happy to talk more about these at any point if anyone has any questions. You've seen presentations on a few of them. I was invited to serve on a couple different boards and do that. We obtained a grant for a Vista volunteer and hired Richard Laurie, which was really great. So we have support in the department now. And he's doing a lot of work with the MARC as well, and as a lot of our public outreach projects. And we put on Climate Week, which we reached over 1,000 people. And we're working with the community on a number of other projects. Do you want me to go into detail on anything? Okay. For the next year, we are hoping to finish some of these projects, get them wrapped up, and then, like Levi was talking about, work on some water-wise landscaping and green infrastructure projects on city properties. We've got the Gonzo Park on our radar with Annie to turn that, it's not actually a park yet, to turn that into a park. Finish up the sustainability action plan in combination with the visioning process that's underway. We've got a fleet electrification plan going with technical assistance from Northern Utah and from Chet over at Facilities or Public Works. And then we've got a lot more outreach and education surrounding our water conservation programs and working on some other things.
Questions for Mila? That was good. You did that in 3 minutes.
All right.
And you know, the thing, you're doing so much, and I'm sure that the council has a lot of questions about what you're doing. So
Happy to answer them
we'll
anytime.
probably talk more about it tomorrow in our meeting tomorrow. Thank you, Mila.
Sure.
All right. Anything from the council before we adjourn this meeting? Thank you, Ronnie and Kaylin, for sticking around a little longer than expected, and I'll work with staff so next year we have a little more time. I kind of kept track of who we probably want to give a little more time to next year. Thank you, everybody, and more to come from our planning tomorrow. So, thank you.
Yeah, thanks to the staff for all your work putting that together and giving us the updates.
Yeah, it's really good for Jason and I. This has been a really
for
good
sure.
overview for us for seeing what all the departments are doing. So next year we'll probably have a lot more questions.
Right.
So be prepared.